I just want to first say what a great pleasure it is to be here today and have this opportunity to talk about a subject that is very, very close to my heart. So, why do we need to change the way we talk and think about obesity? Take a look at these photos. What differences do you notice? What might these individuals all have in common? I can tell you they all share one thing in common, and that is they all live with a chronic disease. So Michael here lives with asthma, Nazia lives with type 2 diabetes, and Josh lives with obesity. The only difference is that Josh is the only one who can't decide to hide his label. He has to wear his label every single day. I can tell you that each of these diseases can be modified by lifestyle changes, but it's only Josh that is judged by the way he lives his life. Just because we know Josh lives with obesity, does that give us the right to cast judgment and blame? Absolutely not. Therefore, do you think it's appropriate to publish headlines such as these? Headlines that we know are hugely damaging. Damaging because we know weight stigma causes harm. We know weight stigma is associated with numerous psychological and physical harms that can impact health and well-being, can lead to healthcare avoidance, and can widen inequalities. However, this weight stigma isn't just limited to what we see and what we hear in the media. It occurs across society. From the general public, our employers, our friends, even our families. Even the healthcare professionals that are here to help us can hold stigmatizing and misinformed attitudes towards people living with obesity. And this is illustrated in a study conducted a few years ago now in Bristol, where they provide a really relevant quote from a lady who recalls a GP appointment with her daughter, where he, the GP, said in front of her daughter, "God, she's obese. How on earth did you let her get that size? You know, you've simply just got to cut down. You're giving her the wrong foods. Do you realise how much of a health issue this is? You know, she shouldn't be that size." Do you think this lady and her daughter would have got the same stigmatising and judgmental response if they'd gone to see the same GP because the daughter was suffering from asthma, triggered by the severe damp in their house? However, as I said, this was quite an old study. It was published back in 2012. A decade has passed, so things have changed, attitudes have changed, right? Sadly not. This article was published just this year in nhsmanagers.net, where the authors posed this question: is overweight and obesity always just because of eating too much or taking insufficient exercise? Which they responded with, the answer is almost always yes. The correct answer to this question is almost always no. The reality is obesity is a highly complex disease with over 100 different possible determinants, really nicely illustrated in this aptly named spaghetti diagram produced by the Foresight Project back in 2007. This diagram shows the many different biological and genetic drivers of obesity, the influence of the environment and the society we live in. It also shows the the impact of the choices we can make, and importantly, the impact of those that are completely out of our individual control. The fact is, we have evolved over time to become hardwired to avoid weight loss. And yet we live in a world that promotes weight gain. Therefore, treating obesity is not easy. Over the last 30 years, we have focused very much on weight-centric approaches that target individual behaviour change that really fail to address the underlying complexities that drive this chronic, progressive disease. The turning point for me was back in 2018 when I completed a review series for the Cochrane Library that was examining the evidence for treatments for children and adolescents living with overweight and obesity. The depressing thing for me was, over a decade, we noticed that the evidence base had nearly tripled in size, and yet our understanding, we were no further forward, with really key questions remaining, such as what treatment approaches are most effective for children who might have complex needs or from diverse backgrounds that don't traditionally take part in these clinical research studies? And importantly, how do we provide effective long-term care? So we really need to do things differently if we are really going to make a difference to the many millions of people living across the world with obesity. And I am not alone in this plea. I'd like to share with you a quote from one of our lived experience members who said, "Every time I go to the weight management appointment, I feel judged by the numbers on the scales. I am full of dread. If it's a bad result, I go home feeling miserable and demotivated. Don't they realise how hard this is and how hard I am trying?" We know there are so many factors that drive weight gain. We know that stigma causes harm. And we know that health and well-being gains can be made with and without weight loss. Therefore, if we're going to truly address the complexity of obesity, we've got to think differently. We need to think more about person-centred, compassionate, lifelong care. This is care that puts people living with obesity at the heart. It's about providing personalised and coordinated care that is developed with people living with obesity and tailored to their individual needs across the life course. It's about enabling care. It's about informing, supporting, empowering patients to make informed decisions. And importantly, it's about providing dignity, compassion, and respect, where we eliminate weight bias and we focus on outcome measures that are meaningful and important to patients. So it's critical we always ask permission before weight is discussed, and we ensure that all conversations are positive, helpful, supportive, collaborative, and most importantly, understanding. And this is why.
So an average morning for me would be waking up in bed. After lying overnight, I have aches and pains, especially in my lower back. The thought of having to get out of bed is a struggle.
When I'm traveling with public transport to my work, I usually feel that I am judged.
At work, they don't know my name. They all know me only as the fat construction manager.
People notice you and they stare.
Society, they're gonna give stigma no matter what. If you're not looking like this perfect person as they see on Instagram, we not all look like each other.
It's all day, every day. And then you wake up the next morning and it starts again.
I love to cycle.
I love swimming. My life is swimming. I teach swimming.
Painting. It's my new hobby, and I paint like a 6-year-old. I draw like a 6-year-old, but I'm having so much fun with it. I love it.
I'd love to see people change their judgments, to just take 1 second to pause before you speak.
People, if they were educated and understood what obesity was, perhaps maybe they wouldn't judge and shame people and they'd support them instead.
Let's actually have an aligned language, one that's mutually respectful. It is a disease. I have obesity. I'm not an obese person.
So I would like to leave you with one message from today. And it is that obesity is a complex, chronic disease. It is not a lifestyle choice, and it requires compassionate, lifelong, and person-centered care. Thank you.